Welcome everybody. If you're here for the Impact Investing webinar post-COVID, you're in the right place. We are just opening the waiting room and inviting our audience to take their seats, albeit virtually, for your webinar this afternoon. I can see you rushing through the doors. The numbers are flowing in quite quickly here. You're for the Impact Investment webinar, looking at post-COVID opportunities. We'll take a few minutes just to make sure everyone gets their place, cup of tea's in hand, and everyone's ready to go. We've got our panel of speakers right across the globe for you today. We're spanning from Australia through to Texas. So, and stop-offs in between. So it's great to have you all here. We'll give it another minute as people exit the waiting room, and then we'll be ready to start. Not long now, nearly there. Give it another 30 seconds just to make sure everyone's exited the waiting rooms, and we'll be there to start. I'm just going to share my screen for one moment, and then we'll get ready to go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's the 13th of July, it's 1 o'clock. So I'm delighted to be able to open our live investment webinar today on impact investing post-COVID. We've got three fantastic companies to present to you today. As I said, with presentations and pictures from right across the globe. But before we go into that, there's a couple of words from myself and Jeremy, as always, and we'll do a little bit of housekeeping too. First off, I'll hand over to Jeremy. Jeremy, if you'd like to take the floor and just remind us of the regulations and the risks around impact investing.
Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see such a large attendance today. Well, today's webinar is about impact investing post-COVID, and the timing really couldn't be better, as there's lots of talk at the moment of how quickly we should come out of our COVID restrictions. And I think today you'll hear something that's really topical around that subject. But I do need to make you all aware that today's presentations must be classed as financial promotions, and therefore this webinar is really restricted to investment professionals, high net worth and sophisticated investors. Now, of course, this is a webinar and we have lots of people here who might just be interested in what the companies are doing, and it's open to the public. So just be aware that anybody who likes what they're doing and is interested in investing, when you come the process to contact to go onto our platform, we're very careful, and only high net worth, sophisticated professional investors from the UK will be able to invest. Investors from outside of the UK need to comply with the regulations in their country of origin. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for just making that really clear. Well, our webinar today is brought to you by a partnership, which is from Impact Invest. You've just heard from Jeremy there, and Impact Group. And this is a unique partnership where we deliver impact investment and impact accreditation and offer solutions around impact right across the globe. We have our regulated online investment platform, which you'll get an opportunity to see later on in this webinar, where you can see and have a look at businesses from across the globe offering equity, debt, bonds, fund investment opportunities, fantastic opportunities that give you, the impact investor, everything you need to know to make the decisions you need to make. Now, obviously, this webinar is about impact investing post-COVID. So I'm just going to take a little bit, a couple of minutes to just give you a little bit of context as to how things have changed over the past year, really, and the differences and the impact we've felt with COVID and what that meant for the sector. Now, all investments have impact, and we know that, but understanding impact is absolutely key. And I think the introduction of the SDGs have enabled impact investors to unite and come together against a collective set of goals, them SDG goals. But challenge brings change, and COVID has brought about the biggest challenge we've faced in the sector for a very long time, certainly since the crash, maybe. And I think COVID has forced businesses, and the businesses that we're presenting to you today, to take stock and review three things really. Firstly, to look at their resilience plans and make sure them plans are fit for purpose. And certainly most companies have been beefing them up during the COVID period. The operating models have changed. All our businesses have had to think differently about how they present their business, do their business, and engage with their customers. Indeed, before COVID, we'd have done this roadshow live in person, and here we are online with nearly 300 investors from across the globe watching. So that digital transformation, that digital agility, that ability to pivot has been crucial during the COVID period. Our investors have had to respond differently too. And I think investors have had to rethink things and do things a little bit differently. And I think it's fair to say they've gone through three clear stages. Firstly, respond, then recover, and finally thrive. In that response stage, the initial response was stop, do nothing, hold still, hang fast, and let's see what the pandemic brings us. But we've moved away from that period now, and I think everyone's looking up and looking forward with a little bit of excitement about what can happen in the impact investment space. That recovery period, certainly there was a slowdown of investment activity and investment behaviors, but now what we've started to see is a real shift towards impact investing, moving away from the traditional mainstream investments, with more people being interested in impact investment and in the opportunities that that brings forward. And now we're in the thrive stage, so this is the exciting part, because it really is all systems go. But don't take my word for it, that would be inappropriate. I've been doing some research over the past couple of weeks, and it's been looking at the GIN, so the Global Impact Investment Network, their annual survey, where they took the temperature check across 20 and 21 of over impact investments worth over 400 billion pounds. Their conclusions? Well, certainly impact investing remains diverse. They've certainly grown, and the opportunity have grown in terms of sophistication and in depth. Measurement has matured, but more measurement needs to be done. We can help with that, as you know, for those that have seen us before. The Impact Mark accreditation is available, and we're certainly happy to have a conversation with you about that. And investors have been more positive around impact investing than ever. We've been on that hockey curve, and now we're moving through that, and hopefully things are here to stay. The experts agree that impact investing can yield real appreciable results, and post-COVID trends are showing five things. Healthcare and MedTech, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? We know, we've seen the pandemic, we've seen the response that's been needed from the healthcare and the MedTech space, and that continues to be reflected in impact investment activities. Climate and everything associated around climate change has been given a greater importance. And alongside that, ESG skepticism has reduced at last. We've been shouting about environmental and social governance for a very long time now. Biodiversity and the biodiversity crisis has transformed how investors deal with things like habitat reduction, over-harvesting, the introduction of invasive species. And then finally, the fifth trend is around social inequality, and which this continues to test investors' creativity, with some willing to even risk failure to pursue these new solutions. So it's good news, it's positive news for the impact investing space. You know, impact investing is now more of a mainstream option than it's ever had, and it can empower the creation of a world where diversity, inclusiveness and sustainability strive. So now we'll move on, a couple of little housekeeping bits. Each company will present for between 6 and 8 minutes. We'll take the first 3 audience questions, although if we have time, keep the questions coming, and we'll make sure we'll get through as many as possible. I will take a poll in between each of our presenters, and there'll be the opportunity to request one-to-one follow-ups with all our presenters here today. And of course, it goes without saying, your full recordings will be available after the event. You can invest very easily via the platform. Todd will show you how at the end of this webinar. You can invest today for a minimum of £20,000. Okay, that's enough from me. All of the housekeeping bits done. I'll stop my screen share, and I'd like to welcome our first speaker to the floor today. I'd like to invite Rochelle James, who's the founder and Chief Conservation Officer from Lions Pride, to take the floor. And for all our other panelists, if you can bear with us, if you can switch your videos off, go on mute, and we'll welcome Rochelle and Thomas to the floor. Rochelle, you're still on mute. There we go.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, I'm Rochelle James, and I'm the founder, chair, and chief conservation officer of World Wildlife Conservancies. And I'm here to introduce our Lions Pride Zimbabwe project. I'm also joined, as Debbie mentioned, by our chief finance officer, Tom Pride, who has some 40 years investment banking experience. World Wildlife Conservancies is a global wildlife conservation company that brings community and people to the forefront of conservation. We work in partnership with 5 entities towards a common purpose: to build sustainable civilizations. Our business model is unique as it harmonizes commercial with charity and social with environmental. Lions Pride is, in essence, a land and assets acquisition company and landlord. We purchase trophy hunting properties with lodging and simply transform it, turning it from a hunting property into a wildlife sanctuary that comes with an immediate revenue generation stream, catering to tourists with cameras instead of tourists with guns. Upon land acquisition, we immediately save thousands of animals from trophy hunters and poachers while generating a stable and sustainable profit. We do this by leasing the land to our 5 sister entities to build vital wildlife community and commercial programs. Before we go any further, let me tell you a story. When I was younger, I traveled to remote Africa to work in a lion breeding centre that was supposed to breed lions to be released for conservation. On a daily basis, I walked with a guide amongst these beautiful animals and looked after them. I got to know them and love them. Many years later, I learned that the lions I had cared for had likely been sold to hunting properties and been shot. I was heartbroken. That experience is what birthed Lions Pride, to create a way we can uplift wildlife and community together. So let me address the elephant in the room. Trophy hunting has long been touted as a conservation tool, shooting wildlife to conserve them. If we believe that the way to save endangered species is to shoot them, then we have already lost the race. We are not an advocacy group, we are a sustainable business, and buying hunting lands is one way we save wildlife and bring vital services to local communities. So why am I here today? The numbers speak for themselves. The lion, not long ago, 1950s, we had 500,000 of them, then 300,000, then 100,000, and today, just 20,000 left. Projected extinction, 2050. The cheetah, not too long ago, we had 40,000, now just 7,000. And the rhino, just 5,000 left. And what is underlying this? Southern Africa is home to 2/3 of the world's extreme poor population. Children in some areas are barely eating 1 meal a day. As a peoples, we are facing a total environmental and societal breakdown. So what can we do together? We are currently raising £5,750,000 to purchase a very rare piece of land with existing safari tourism business. The property is rare because it's located inside of a national park. It has abundant wildlife, it's lakefront, and it borders Great Zimbabwe, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The property has existing and operational lodging and a tented camp infrastructure. We will transform this property, named Lions Pride, into a Big Five wildlife sanctuary, home to lion, leopard, buffalo, rhino, and elephant, and renovate the infrastructure into luxury safari tourism lodging. We have thought very carefully about how to make this project sustainable, not only for wildlife and community, but also business and the investor. We have used a very British investment vehicle called a debenture. The debenture is unique because it pays you a sustainable 7% interest rate on your investment every year. Additionally, you'll get the upside of 15% of the equity and the profits. This in turn generates a blended ROI of 13.3% per annum over 10 years. Now, investing in a project in Africa, you may think is risky. However, our management team has lived and worked there profitably for decades in the same industry. We have designed this to be very secure. Our investors have security of 20,000 acres of national park land valued at over £17 million. And at closing, our founders are contributing 20% in an investment account to serve as collateral. Our project is made sustainable by 4 diverse foundational sources of revenue. First, we have existing revenue from the existing lodges. Second, these renovated lodges, both traditional and safari camp, tented camps, generate on average £1 million per year. Third, our sister entities pay sustainable lease revenue of over £1 million every year. And finally, we have an endowment fund that is dedicated to paying any annual shortfalls in revenue and committed to buying out the debentures at maturity if necessary. These revenues are conservatively modelled for you to ensure that we have the revenue to pay your interest and profit as we have projected. Lions Pride will serve as the launching point for the majority of our social impact projects, including microfinancing, education, freshwater wells, and job creation. We will also launch vital wildlife conservation initiatives, including a wildlife hospital, rhino breeding and reintroduction project, and lion rescue centre. We are an executive team of driven wildlife scientists, sustainability experts, legal and investment banking veterans, and luxury tourism specialists who share an equal passion in saving our planet's wildlife and helping her people. Safari tourism is recognised by both the IFC and IMF as a fundamental economic driver in Africa. Tourism is the backbone to many African nations, and it is projected to grow post-COVID, end of 2022, at a sustainable 11% per year for the next decade. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a simple tourism operation. This is a social and environmental impacts business that has created a new vehicle of tourism operations to save wildlife and bring vital services to communities. Your investment also buys you the exclusive rights to visit Lions Pride and experience how you are leaving a lasting legacy for people and our wildlife on our planet today.
Rochelle, thank you very much. Okay, is my microphone okay? All good there? Yeah. Super. So if you could stop your screen share now, and I would like to invite our audience to use the QA or the chat function at the bottom of your screen. So we can ask Rochelle and Tom any questions about their presentation. So if you'd like to use the chat function and you get them questions through, I can ask them live for you now. Whilst they're doing that and getting that ready, Rochelle, in terms of the COVID experience, how's the past 12 months been? How has it affected things in terms of your plans and how things have been going?
We have used COVID as an opportunity. So currently, both sites, lodges and staffing throughout Africa are selling at fire sale prices because of what COVID has done to the tourism industry. And so we're able to purchase land and lodging at extremely low prices for the first time in history. However, as COVID is moving out, and you've seen by what I said in my presentation, towards the end of 2022, it's projected to grow specifically in Southern Africa, tourism, at a rate of 11% every year, moving from 650 million to 2 billion over the next decade. And so we've taken the opportunity and are entering the market at the perfect time to make the most of COVID and the slingshot back into the tourism market.
Fantastic. And it sort of links into our next question here in terms of what is the status of the project currently? So have you got, where are you with the land? Is it just a target, or is it something, have you gone through any more formal processes in terms of that acquisition?
The government of Zimbabwe, who are selling the parcel of land, have drawn up the paperwork, and we're actually meeting with them next week to work through the finer details. So it's all ready to go.
It's all in motion. All right. Okay. Fantastic. And next question coming up there. What are, or do you have any concerns about travel restrictions in terms of COVID and what that has meant for people being able to visit?
No, so we've already seen the UK, Germany, Sweden, and the US have already picked up in terms of movement towards Africa. So we've got many connections throughout the safari tourism industry in Africa, and they're about to move back into, in the last quarter of this year, everything's starting to come back on board. And so it's picking up faster than we had anticipated already. As we were projecting mid next year, it's already picking up in this last quarter of 2021.
Fantastic. Okay. Another question coming in then, and it's about the endowment fund. Can this fund be used now? And what are the restrictions to it being used for this raised? Maybe this is one for you, Tom, perhaps.
There are no restrictions. Simply, the endowment fund is set off to the side because this isn't the only property that we're seeking. This endowment fund is set up by a number of founders. And we have, at this point, we have a goal of achieving well over 10 million acres of hunting properties, converting them to sanctuaries. So this endowment fund is going to get plenty of use over the next several years as we acquire more and more properties. And we have designated as one of the key responsibilities of the founders in this endowment fund is that's where the 20% is coming for the down payment to add additional collateral for your investors. And should there be any operational shortfall, and we actually do have one in the first year, typical of any business, we'll have an over $1 million operational shortfall that will be covered by the endowment fund. So any type of an emergency we have, any type of a problem we have with cash flow, then the endowment fund is always there. That is our piggy bank, but it is not going to be pledged as additional collateral for this. We like to think that the land at 17 million conservatively, our almost $2 million in an investment account, we think that that's a pretty good loan to debt valuation.
Okay, and it links into the next question really, because obviously you forecast an occupancy rate of 41%. Is that, is that your worst case scenario? What's the reason behind the 41% there?
Actually, we've begun at a 10% occupancy rate in year one, although this particular facility was at 30% before COVID hit. And the reason why it was at 30 and everything in the immediate area was north of 50, that is one of the reasons why Vic Wilkins was brought to the table by the government, because his properties for the last 2 decades have averaged a 90% occupancy rate.
Okay.
So he is one of the very best in the industry at managing properties as such. But we started 10 and we evolved to a 41% occupancy rate over a 4 or 5 year span. So that is an incredibly conservative number that we forecasted for occupancy rates.
Okay, super. So we've got some questions coming up on the political disarray between Zimbabwe and South Africa. What are your concerns around this, and how are you going to manage, what are you doing to manage this from an investor's perspective? How are you going to pay out if it doesn't work or if something kicks off?
Well, as it turns out, we have a financial safety blanket in the fact that this isn't our first rodeo. This isn't our first property. We have a 99-year concessionary lease in the Timavati National Reserve, Masai Mara Reserve National Park. We have a 99-year concession there. And the facilities from the housing and the tourists' lodges are all very modular. And we could literally, in a worst case scenario, we could disassemble and be on the road within a week.
Okay.
And reset in probably some of the most famous properties on earth in Timbavati and Masai Mara. So we feel very confident that in a crisis situation, we're still fine. And then, of course, we also have the endowment fund sitting back there. We also have, well, once we have title deed to the property, it would take something extraordinary to jeopardize our business model.
Super. I'm just very conscious of time, so I'm going to join two questions together here before we move on. Any questions that are outstanding, we'll get back to people in the follow-up. Your revenue was projected in one pillar based on existing revenues, but presumably those are based on hunting tourism. So what allowances have you made that you will be marketing to a different, more competitive audience, really? And in terms of that revenue, can you just clarify, is that in local currency or US dollars?
Well, just to clarify, this particular parcel of land is inside of a national park. So this parcel of land isn't designated as trophy hunting land, although it is highly exposed to trophy hunting and poaching. So the current clientele of the property aren't trophy hunters. And then I'll pass that over to Tom to finish off the question.
Well, I think that answers it right there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I really do. And again, we've lowered the occupancy rate, which was 30, all the way down to 10. This is not the typical thing, as Rochelle was just saying. We're not having to convert and lose potential business that we're expecting to show up and hunt animals and telling them that they're not welcome anymore unless they bring their camera. So we think our occupancy rates in this side of this national park are absolutely ridiculously conservative.
Super. Okay, well, thank you very much, both Rochelle and Tom there. Just whilst our next speaker, Fiona, gets ready, I'm going to launch our poll. So I'd invite our audience to take a couple of minutes. There's only 4 questions. If you can just read through the poll there, give us your feedback, tell us what you think about Lions Pride, and that will assist us in making sure that we bring the very best opportunities for you, both now and in the future. Rochelle, Tom, thank you. If I can invite you now to go back on mute.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Switch off your videos. And then Fiona, are you there?
I'm there. I'm ready. Yes.
We can't see your video, Fiona. So can you switch on your camera?
It says I can't do it because my host has stopped it.
Let me just switch you back on at this end. There we go. I've asked you to start video, so you should be able to come
start
back
video.
Online.
I'm here. Right.
Great. Lovely. Okay then. So Fiona, over to you.
Share screen.
Wonderful.
So, my name's Fiona Holton. I'm founder and CEO of Right Rooms. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Jeremy, to Debbie, to Todd for inviting me to speak to you all today. We're looking for £100,000 investment for 9% share in Right Rooms. And we're targeting a 5-year trade sale, which isn't without precedent, which I can come on to later. So I expect at the moment that we are all so much wanting to go away on holiday and enjoy ourselves again and recharge our batteries. And it's much the same for people who are disabled, no different. And yet their frustration will continue. In fact, going away for them is an exercise in complexity, in difficulty, in frustration. Take Neil here. He's a CEO too. And when he goes away, he wants to find a compact room that he can feel his way round in a hotel. He wants somewhere to take his guide dog. And when he arrives, he wants to be sure that somebody will show him to his room so they can show him where the plugs are and how the appliances work. Only once, but he wants a guarantee of that. Then there's Anne, who wants to go away with her elderly mother. What she wants is no steps in the hotel that her mother will encounter, and she wants lever taps in the bathroom because her mother has arthritic hands. Then there's Joanne, who goes away with her son who has autism, and all she wants is to know that she can switch the extractor fan off in the bathroom because the noise terrifies her son. She's also keen to be able to open the windows at night. Now, with any of those people, it is so difficult, in fact, almost impossible to find those features if you go online to search. I know that because I went away on holiday after I'd smashed my leg, and all I wanted was a small step to the shower and banisters on the stairs. But I couldn't find them. I went on 5, 6 websites. I phoned hotel receptions and I asked friends, and I ended up not going away. In fact, 25% of people who have a disability don't go away. So why has it got to be this hard? It shouldn't be this hard to make travel accessible to everyone. It speaks so much to SDG 10, reduced inequalities. It actually speaks to a couple of other SDGs too, which I'll come on to. So I joined up with Laurie Young, who creates products for millions of people. He's brilliant. And together we talked to many disability groups. I've been talking to them before as well, covering hundreds of thousands of people. We also talked to hotel after hotel, and we came up with Right Rooms. Here you can search on the features that matter to you. So Neil could search on compact room. He could also search on hotel policies. Joanne could search on whether you can actually have a bathroom without an extractor in it. And we could find out if there were banisters on the stairs. Added to that, we just give a lovely experience, as any website should be, of finding out about the hotel and really feeling excited about going away on holiday, and details about what there is to do nearby. We started with COVID safety because COVID safety was very urgent. And we started to list COVID safety features, 50 of them, so many more than you'd find on other sites. We're then going to add accessibility features, which we had already worked on. And the market for disability is huge. 12% of overnight trips are made with the people with a disability. It's growing all the time. So 45% of people over 65 have a disability. And there's a huge growth in potential revenue. Those people, in contrary to expectations, they spend more, they stay more than other people, they stay extra days, and not surprisingly, they're unfailingly loyal because when they find somewhere, they go back and back. After working on disability, we're going to add sustainability features next. So 55% of people want to know about sustainability features in hotels, and 33% just don't know about them, speaking to SDGs 12 and 13. Our business model, well, we're charging for enhanced listings at the moment, and we're concentrating on building both enhanced and basic listings, which are free, so that we get to 3,000 hotels by year 3. We're then going to pivot and start charging commission. In fact, some hotels are already offering to pay commission. And we're aiming to get to what is really quite a modest 6,000 hotels by year 5. That's when considering that there's 45,000 hotels in the UK, and we're aiming for the sort of mid-bracket. That is not very many. The competitive landscape, well, it's lovely going away on booking.com. I enjoy it, and Airbnb, but it's not for Neil, and it wasn't for me when I smashed my leg. It's not for people who are elderly and need to find specific features. And the other way you can look is by going to very detailed websites. I tried that, but mostly they only focus on mobility. Mostly they only focus on people in wheelchairs. That's 8% of the mobility market, not the total market for disability, which is much, much bigger. And they tend, with some notable exceptions like HandDiscover, to be pretty clunky. Otherwise, you're forced into the hands of concierges who are great. They'll find your holiday for you and they'll tell you what they think you need. But then they certainly weren't for me. In terms of traction to date, so over COVID, we've managed to build our platform, which we're very proud of. It's a platform that we can keep building. We've got contracts now with hotels. We've got relationships with 5 chains, including the UK's biggest independent chain. And we've got a fantastic team of 6 and some brilliant advisors. The funds that we're asking you for will load those all important accessibility features for us. They will help us develop our search even more. They will help us market right rooms, not only to disability groups who I know pretty well now, and they're going to be a key plank of our marketing, but also on social media and for groups who wouldn't consider themselves disabled, but still need to know those features. In terms of financials, well, they say not to put a complicated graph up. I've tried to make this pretty simple.
You've done well, don't worry, don't worry.
But what I've done is I've outlined, I've always know that finances tell a story. So the story here is the growth in hotels from year 1 to 3 to 6, which is already focused on facts on the ground. It's what we've already achieved with 100 hotels at the moment up and listing during COVID, and the growth rates that we know from the team that we have in place. We know that you'll look and think there's a strange blip in year 3 because the revenue goes up such a lot, but that's because we pivot to commission for all hotels. We are also, though, being pretty conservative about it in that we're anticipating a 50% drop off in year 3 as well of hotels listing. And then we're going on an upward curve. In terms of funding, 100,000 now, and I'll explain in a minute why that's so important to us and to the SDGs, as well as to being there because this is on an upward streak. And then adding accessibility, starting our marketing to disability groups, and then accelerating in year 2 with a 500,000 investment. The EBITDA is over 3 million by year 6. There's a multiple there in terms of EV for OTAs of anything between 6 to 12. But also, alongside this, it's definitely something which many people have said, why was this never done before? And it certainly brings profit. I mean, Ali, who's worked in the hotel industry for 25 years with leading brands, said the benefit's so much more revenue. It's a bit like an Amazon where you're searching on detail. And everybody anyway is trending to personalization. The Athenaeum say, why wouldn't you recommend it to another hotel? And indeed, we're in all their hotels now. But it's also hugely important for people with disabilities. I heard a comment yesterday, which actually I've heard before. This was from a travel agent, which was different, but a travel agent who has disabilities. She just said, why wasn't this done 10 years ago? It will make so much difference.
Fantastic.
It is, you can't put a price on marketing or making travel accessible to everyone. Debbie, we can measure it. I'm very good on measuring SDG.
Well, we're
You
nearly
can
the end
measure
of
it
our
both
time
for
now.
people
So,
and hotels.
all right.
And
Super.
your investment is like a ripple spreading out.
Fantastic. That's great, Fiona. Thanks very much for that. Really clear presentation. I'd like to invite our audience to think about their questions. They're starting to come in now. Isn't it strange, though, how your own, when we have a personal experience, when you had your accident, when you fell off your ladder, that suddenly it makes you look at things through a different lens. And
Yes.
suddenly when you've had that experience and you think, wow, why wasn't that there before?
Yes.
Our questions are coming through now, so I can ask you to stop your screen share and we'll get to our questions. The first one coming through, why do you anticipate a drop off? So that 50% you were talking about in year 3 when you switch to commissions, is it because at that point they actually start to pay only for the results, not upfront? What's the rationale behind the modelling there?
So they're free listings before then. And I think any hotel, I mean, we've talked a lot to hotels about commissions. They don't like them, is the answer. But on the other hand, they don't have to pay money up front. My feeling is that we will be, and we already are proving ourselves to hotels. They love our questions. They love our checklist. And so and they're already offering to go on commission. Our commission is not that huge. It's 10% as opposed to the very big commissions others charge. But I would always anticipate a drop off just because I'm very conservative.
Okay, fantastic. So on that basis then, in terms of being conservative, the next question is about your valuation at 1.1 million. So how has that been calculated and what's that based on?
Yes. Well, we had a previous investment. We had a previous investment of 37,500. That was when the company was had a valuation of about 800,000. Since then, we've got a working platform. We've got the hotels up. We know that they will buy into the concept. We've got relationships with 5 chains. So things are different. And the way that we work our taxonomy of features and display them, we've worked out a simple way of doing that. So we have added value.
Okay. Another COVID-related question here. Obviously, not dissimilar to Rochelle's presentation, COVID has affected the tourism industry, and this sits nicely in your space too. So have you made sort of any provision in the financial modelling if there's another wave? Does that has that been sort of considered in your modelling?
Yes. So my modelling last year and even before that, because we started to model, we looked at the pulses and the waves. And we've been again careful over anticipating what will happen even in the summer. I mean, my answer to that, Debbie, is that we're growing slowly at the moment. In a way, it's helpful that we can grow at now with hotels when they will answer our questions, when they are very concerned, when they're not sailing on as normal. And so we have made that provision for a slower growth because of COVID. Having said that, it's interesting. We found that occupancy dived in places like London, for instance, and Bristol, the big cities, but it is on the up again. And in some places, particularly in country places, it's very high.
Okay, Okay. Now, the next question coming through, obviously it's a really difficult area to break into. You've got your competitors, you've got your booking.com, your Expedias, and they dominate everything there. What experience do you have in the team to be able to break through into this marketplace?
Yeah, well, I would say two different types of experience. So we've got Ali Powell, who has worked with hotels in sort of top revenue positions, and we've also got the backing now of a lot of hotels. So we have got that hotel insight, which I didn't have at the beginning. I have a very different insight in that my insight has been, well, apart from running companies before, and building them, has been in working with disability groups. And that gives a completely different complexion. In other words, I've got my roots into them. So I've got my roots into a market that is singular and different. But I think that in terms of the competition, we're not taking on booking.com. We're doing something which is for a particular sliver. I think the surprising is it's such a big sliver that it militates against everything the system that the booking.coms and the others at the moment all use. And there really is no reason at the moment why they would want to pivot from it. In fact, I think they might take it on board in the very, very long run, but in the shorter run, they're not going to personalize their site in the way we are. What we're doing is very features led. It's an outlier, but it is very, very much needed. So it's niche,
Okay.
and it's quite hard to do. And you won't get a booking.com suddenly changing all their booking processes because they see us coming along. But we will, with my expertise and with Ali's expertise in hotels, get that market.
Fantastic. Fiona, thank you very much. That was a great presentation, and I'm sure our audience will agree, a great investment opportunity for something that is so much needed at this moment in time. And you know, the tourism industry is one that we all have to get behind so we can recover in this post-COVID period. I'm now going to launch the poll. So I will, if I can do my technology right and make sure I get the right poll up. So the next poll for Right Rooms should be on your screen now. Thank you, Fiona. I'll invite you to turn off your video again. And I would, whilst our poll is underway, I would like to invite Robert Henry to the floor. Now, Robert is the president and CEO of DiaTech Oncology. And for those of you who recognize him, he's been on here before, once before. So it's a great pleasure to have you back, Robert. And I know I'm very conscious that it's very early in the morning for you at this moment in time, but welcome to the floor. I'm just going to finish this poll, and then I would like to invite you to share your screen. I know you've got a short presentation for us, but we are going to have more of a conversation, it's fair to say. Is that right?
Yes.
Super.
That'll be great, Debbie.
Okay, so as I said, Robert is founder and president of DiaTech Oncology. Robert, can you tell us briefly a little bit about yourself, about the history of Pierian and DiaTech, and how it all came about, really?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to, Debbie. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a very stormy morning in Nashville, Tennessee, and I apologize for the dark room, but it's the only way I can actually get our video to work this morning. So,
no problem.
But a little bit about myself. I've been involved in some aspect of healthcare for my entire career, and I have to tell you, being CEO of DiaTech has been both an honor and a privilege. And it is because of our ability to impact so many lives with the work that we're doing. This company has a very unique history. There's a family here in Nashville, the Miller family, that became aware of this new disruptive technology that was being developed at Vanderbilt University here in Nashville. And it was designed to help oncologists determine which chemotherapy agents were the most effective for a patient. But unfortunately, Vanderbilt granted a license to a different individual to develop the technology. During the first year after the individual was granted the license, the Miller's grandmother was diagnosed with an ovarian cancer. The Millers reached out to this licensee and asked if he would test her cancer so that they could take advantage of this unique technology. And they were told no. They offered the licensee first 10,000, then 25,000, 50,000, and then eventually $100,000 to get this individual to test their grandmother's cancer. This was for a single test, and they were told no each time. The licensee finally said that unfortunately they couldn't test this individual's tissue because they had not established a lab. Outraged, the Millers fought to obtain the license, and a year later were granted a license to the technology and started their journey on developing this very disruptive technology.
It's unbelievable, isn't it, really?
It really is, and it's amazing the passion and the commitment that this family has and has had for many years to this technology and seeing it through. You know, Debbie, I know that you or someone that you know has a loved one or a family member that has been touched by cancer. They start feeling bad, they go see their physician, and they receive the news that no one wants to hear, which is you have cancer. At that point in time, their world stops. And a good friend of mine is going through this right now. And he said, you know, Robert, when the physician said that, I didn't hear another thing they said. My world just stopped right there. And it's a very traumatic event for people. This starts them on a treatment pathway that's based on statistics and protocols that have been developed over the years. But those statistics and protocols are developed on a one-size-fits-all approach. So patients, go in and they have what's called first-line treatment. And during that first-line treatment, they may do really well and respond and recover quickly. Some of those patients will not, and they'll move to second-line treatment. And they may respond or may not. But some who don't respond move to third-line treatment. And third-line treatment is really bad. For those patients that do not respond, they hear the words that no one ever wants to hear, which is, you have a difficult cancer. For all those patients, we are driven to make sure that they never have to hear those words. And it's the goal and the mission that the Miller family has had for a number of years now. So I'm sorry, Deb.
Go on, carry on.
No, so to achieve this, we're developing tests where we will provide data, the oncologists with data from our assays to help them make a more personalized treatment decision on how best to treat their patients and treat their individual cancer.
So what are you doing in terms of the platforms? What's being developed by the company? How does that actually work?
So we have developed two different assays, Debbie.
And by assay, just for our audience benefit,
our test.
Yeah.
Our test.
Yeah.
And we've developed these two assays or tests. One is based off the original technology that was developed at Vanderbilt, and the other one was developed in-house by our scientists. The first test is the one that's after the one that was developed at Vanderbilt called the Chemo Intel test. And you can see I have some information up there, but what we do is we use the individual patient's live cancer cells.
Robert, we can't see your screen. Can you just share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was being shared. So hold on one second.
No problem. I'll tell you when it comes up.
Is it there?
No, not there yet.
Okay.
Talk us through it. We're going to share the presentation to everybody anyway, but talk us through.
How's
here
that?
we go. That's it. There
Okay.
we go. So go on to the next slide, I think it
My
is.
apologies. I'm not sure what happened with it. So the first assay that we have is the ChemoIntel. We use a patient's live cancer cells, and we apply the drugs that are recommended, the chemotherapy drugs that are recommended by the oncologist. And over a 48-hour period, we monitor the changes in those cells. We look to see how those cells respond to the different cytotoxic drugs. And then we provide that data back to the oncologist to help them make a better determination as to which drugs should be used.
So effectively, within a 48-hour period, you can determine from your tests whether or not a particular treatment will be effective for a particular patient.
Yes, or non-effective.
Exactly, which is crucial
Right.
to know. You're not going to waste all that time in chemo that isn't going to do anything for you at all.
That's correct. That's correct. The second assay or second test that we developed is the ImmunoIntel platform. Again, we use the patient's live cancer cells. And if we get a large enough sample from that patient, we can run both assays, which is amazing, okay? And we assess the cancer cells to determine if the patient might respond to the new immunotherapy or IO drugs that have been developed. I'm sure everyone has been reading about the tremendous breakthroughs that have happened with those drugs. We're also able to help determine if those patients might have side effects to those drugs and whether or not they would be a responder or a non-responder. If you're a pharma company, we'd be able to help determine if that patient would be a good candidate for a trial. Again, looking for responders or non-responders and using the test then to monitor those patients during the trial.
So how do you see, I mean, when is all this going to become commercially available? When do you see, how do you see the two platforms being used, and what's the next steps really with it?
So currently, we are the only company where an oncologist can send a patient's live tumor cells and receive data within 2 to 5 days once we receive that tissue in the lab. That will help them determine the best treatment options for their patients and get them into remission as quickly as possible. So over the next 12 to 18 months, the data that we produce will be invaluable, I mean, absolutely invaluable to pharma, biotechs, clinical research institutions, and the data will be used for all stages of drug development, patient selection, and patient monitoring during trials. Additionally, we see an ever expanding opportunity in the area of value-based and population health. Cancer patients are the great unknown. You don't know when that patient walks through your door as an oncologist, if that is going to be the patient that is going to respond to first-line treatment or go all the way to third-line treatment, requiring numerous hospital stays and high expenses. And these types of risk-sharing plans, they will really demand, Debbie, personalized medicine approach, where the goal is to process patients into remission as quickly as possible and keep them in remission. And our test will be very highly informative to help the physicians make those decisions. Also, if you look at a health system like the NIH in the UK or Medicare in the US, they'll value our test as new drugs receive approval. An example, so if a new drug comes out and is approved as highly effective in 1 out of 4 patients, or 25% of the patients, which patients should receive that drug? Right now, they don't know. Should all 4 patients get the drug? Should the health system have to pay if the drug doesn't work on a patient? Or worst case scenario, if the patient has an adverse event that's caused by the drug? We see our test becoming a necessary part of the process to help patients progress into remission quickly, reducing patients from receiving unnecessary drugs,
Sure.
and also avoiding the adverse effects caused by those drugs, and reducing the overall cost and treatment and just personal cost for
Brilliant.
patients when they're diagnosed with cancer.
I'm conscious we've gone over time, Robert. So let's talk about the money. Okay.
Okay.
So how much investment is it that you're actually trying to raise at the moment?
So we're trying to raise 12 million pounds. So for our UK folks,
And
we
what's
are
the minimum investment that people can put in?
So we are doing this through Keyholder, and Keyholder has agreed to accept an individual investment for a short period of time of £10,000.
Okay,
Right?
fantastic.
We're looking to see the first value inflection for those who invest early in Q3 of 2022. And one of the things too, Debbie, you had asked about the impact of the pandemic. So one of the things that is very unique about our assay is we require live tissue. And we have been working with an oncologist in the EU. Well, during the pandemic, as you know, we couldn't receive tissue.
Yeah.
It had to be shipped to us, and there were all sorts of issues. So what we're looking to do with this money is actually open up a lab in the EU. Okay. We think it's very important to be where the tissue is, and we can get more tissue quicker there than we can in the United States at a much more competitive price.
Fantastic.
So we're looking at conducting 2 studies with this funds, as well as opening the lab and being able to start having results at this time next year.
Great. Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there now, Robert. I'm going to launch the poll as we're speaking, as our audience is getting the questions ready. One of the things, just while you're thinking about your questions and doing your poll, one of the things in a conversation Robert was telling me this week is that, there's movements in the States now with the healthcare providers and the pharmaceuticals, that if they prescribe a treatment and that treatment doesn't work, then actually the pharma companies and the healthcare insurers are going to be asking for that money back. So this is a great opportunity to get in early with your investment and to make sure that you can participate in something that ultimately affects all of our families right across the world. And I think it's a real opportunity there. Robert, if you want to stop your screen share now, and I'll just have a look at some of the questions that are coming in. Which is, firstly, what clinical trials that have been done and how beneficial was it to the patients?
So we have done a number of preliminary trials, and with the original assay, we conducted almost 12 different trials in a variety of different cancers. We also provided the assay to individuals who were willing to pay for it, and we had contracts with payers to be able to do that. And the results were really amazing. When the assay was used, we saw the effectiveness for those patients to be very high. I mean, the number of testimonials from patients would span almost from here to the UK. But one of the things that we saw was in the area of pancreatic cancer, which is a very, very deadly cancer. Most patients do not do well when they're diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and there's a high percentage, over 80%, that do not live through the first year. We treated a number of patients with pancreatic cancer, or the physicians did, based off of the results of the assay. And those patients went beyond the 5-year life expectation for most patients with pancreatic cancer. So we have a physician in the EU right now that is very interested in conducting a trial with our assays in pancreatic cancer.
Great.
And so we look forward to being able to have these funds to start that study as soon as possible.
I've got 2 questions for you now, and
Yes.
I'm very conscious of time, so if you can keep your responses short, sharp, and sweet. For the immuno-intel, that's a hint there, Robert. For the immuno-intel, for a cancer tissue sample testing, how large a sample is needed for the testing process?
So we can use a fine aspirate needle biopsy for that assay. But the more tissue that we can get, the better it is, the more opportunity that we have to run not only that assay, but the chemo-intel assay as well.
Great. In terms of the method then, do you think, have you got any data whether your methods are more accurate than molecular profiling? If so, to what degree?
So it's not a question really of accuracy. It's actually it's more of the 2 assays can work hand in hand. This is more information, more data that the oncologist would have to be able to make a better determination as to how to treat the patient. So it doesn't replace those assays. It just complements them.
Super. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it there now. We've got a couple more questions. We'll make sure them answers are circulated around to those who have asked the questions. Michael, I know there's a couple of yours, but we'll get there to you as well. Okay, Robert, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I hope you can get some time and get back to bed now. Thanks for your
time. That's okay. Thanks, Debbie.
I'd now like to invite Todd to join the presentation. Todd is the investment director here at Impact and Invest and Impact Group, and Todd's going to give you a demonstration of the platform live so you can see what it's all about. And for those of you that are interested in making your first investment with us, he'll talk you through the process and we can get the ball rolling. Todd, over to you.
Fantastic. Can you hear me, guys? Am I coming through loud and clear, Debbie? Brilliant. Well, I'm very conscious of the time, so I'm going to keep this very brief. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the platform looks like. I'll talk you through how you make a transaction and how you interpret all the data, all the due diligence documents which are on there. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys now. And hopefully, can you see the platform, Debbie? Right. Ready to go then. So when you dial in to the Impact and Invest investment platform, this is what you're greeted with. This is the home screen. And what we do on the home screen is we rotate and feature 3 key deals right at the front just to give them a little bit of attention. If I click this button here, though, view more deals, it'll take you into the full screen where you'll be able to see all the investment opportunities that we're currently raising funds for. And we normally raise for about 15 to 20 companies at any one time. And the reason we do that is to keep the platform nice and diverse. So whether your interest is MedTech, social impact, property, renewable energies, recycling, we've probably got something on the platform that will hit your investment criteria. There's a lot of them on there at the minute, some of them getting close to completing their fundraisers, some of them, a couple of which today that you've just seen have only got on the platform this morning. So new documents and new investment opportunities on there which haven't yet been invested in. So let's take Lions Pride, for example. Now this view is slightly different because I'm in as an administrator at the minute, but if I click this preview button, this is what an investor will see when they come to the platform. So straight away, we give them some brief information in terms of what this investment opportunity is all about. So the name of the company that's trying to raise the funds and what they do. And then what we like to do is go straight into the key sustainable development goals that this organization is working hard towards achieving. Then some key information in terms of the investment product down the right-hand side. What's the growth stage? What sector do they come in? Particularly for the UK opportunities that we're raising funds for, if there's any tax relief associated with that product. And then importantly, where the valuation sits. We list some information immediately. It had a summary document in terms of what the investment is doing, but the key bit of information that you will expect to see is this documentations tab. And in here, we have all the due diligence materials that you will need to see, to interrogate, to get to the point that you're able to make an informed decision as to whether you think that this is an investment opportunity for you. Now, some of these documents, as you can see for Lions Pride, there's 12 of them which are kind of publicly available, but then there's some sensitive documents as well. This might be management accounts. This might be some key contracts with some commercial customers, for example, which are held back under an NDA. So if you get to the point that you do want to invest in these products, we'd ask you to sign an NDA before we release those documents to you. Then we try to bring the investment to life. So we have a section on images, and we have a section where we allow the companies to share a marketing video. This one for Lions Pride is very good, actually. And then importantly, what will you expect to see as an investor? You'll want to know where your money is going to be spent. So we have a section on use of funds, what the intended consequence of that fundraising activity is. And importantly, given that the theme of our investment website is all about impact, how much impact is this company delivering, whether that's social or environmental, and what's their targeted impact as the company grows and brings that investment in and starts to scale as well. We have a section on the team, so you can find out a little bit more about the senior leaders at the organization. And then we have some additional information in terms of whether it's a debt offer or an equity offer. Given that this is a debenture, there's some additional information that needs to be considered as well. But everything that you need to see to be able to make an informed decision as to whether this is a product that you want to invest in is held on the platform. I'm just going to stop my screen share now, but just before I go, what I will say as I'm signing off is we take a register for everybody that's attended today, and over the course of the next week or so, I'll probably be ringing everybody round. But what I will say is, please don't wait for me to call you. If you've seen something today that's taken your interest, or if you've seen something on the platform previously that you think, yes, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, maybe have an introduction to the company, or actually I'm ready to make an investment, please just reach out to me. We'll share my information after the webinar. You'll get a follow-up email, which will have my phone number and my email address as well. But otherwise, I will be in touch with everybody, hopefully before the end of next week. You're still muted.
I've unmuted myself. Thanks very much, Todd. That was a great summary and great to hear. As Todd said, he'll be in touch with you over the coming 10 days. We've seen 3 fantastic opportunities today, very diverse, complete different parts of the world. I'm thrilled to be able to have had someone from Australia, whilst at the same time as someone from Tennessee, and then somebody right in the middle as well. Very different opportunities. It's really easy to get registered for the platform. Just get in touch. My email address is d.ryan@impactgroup.info. Todd is t.ryan@impactgroup.info. And then Jeremy is jk@impactandinvest.com. We all work together. We can get you registered within the hour. You can start looking at them documents. By close of pay today, you could have made a difference to the planet. You could have made a difference to somebody's life. And it's all at the click of a button. As always, it's been a pleasure hosting this event today. Our next one will be in early September, and we'll let you know the details very, very soon. We will send videos of everything that you've seen today. And for those questions we didn't get to answer, we'll make sure that we contact you so you get the information that you need. Once again, it's me signing off. It's been a pleasure talking to you all, and I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Bye now.